All right, so you guys wanted to hear more about the Richard Engelbert case.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, this one, it really sticks with you. So we've got Richard Engelbert. He's a successful real estate agent, right? In Littleton, Colorado. Living the dream, you know?
Mhm.
The house, the career, the family. Picture perfect. But, well, as they say, appearances can be deceiving. In this case, oh man, this case takes that saying to a whole new level. You see, beneath that perfect surface, there was this whole other side to Richard, this double life he was leading. And that double life, well, let's just say it led him down a very dark path.
Yeah, it's a real reminder that, well, you never really know what's going on behind closed doors, right? You think you know someone, you see their perfect life on the outside, but then the truth comes out. And sometimes that truth can be pretty darn ugly.
And ugly is an understatement when it comes to how this story ends. So we've got Richard's wife, Wendy. She comes home from work one evening and finds him dead. Down in their basement, strangled. And get this, the murder weapon, a luxury belt.
Yeah, that detail always stuck with me too. It's so cold, so calculated. You know, it wasn't just some random act of violence, a crime of passion. This felt personal. This felt deliberate.
Totally. And as the police start digging into Richard's life, man, they uncover this whole tangled web of secrets and affairs. I mean, we're not just talking a few indiscretions here. Richard was living a full-blown double life.
The guy was juggling a lot, maintaining this public image, you know, the successful realtor, the devoted family man, and then behind the scenes, let's just say he had a lot of skeletons in his closet, a lot of things he didn't want the world to see.
Right. And one of those secrets, well, it was a big one. It turns out Richard was having a sexual relationship with his stepson, Harrison. And this has been going on for like 2 years. Can you believe that? 2 years.
I mean, think about the level of deceit involved there, not just from Richard, but from Harrison too. The pressure on both of them to keep that secret hidden. The guilt, the shame, it must have been eating them alive.
And it's not like that was the only thing he was hiding. On top of the affair with his stepson, he was also having all these other affairs.
Yeah.
With men. And get this, the sources say he would use the homes he was showing to meet up with these guys. Can you imagine the risk he was taking? I mean, any one of those encounters could have blown his whole cover.
Risky, yeah, but also I think it shows a certain level of arrogance, a sense of entitlement. Like he was untouchable, you know, like he could get away with anything.
Okay, so let's rewind for a second and go back to the day of the murder. So Wendy, she gets home from work, walks into the house, calls out for Richard, but there's no answer. And, you know, you can just picture that feeling, right? When something feels off, when your gut tells you something's wrong.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You get that little chill down your spine, that sense of dread. You know something's not right, but you don't know what it is.
Exactly. So she goes down to the basement, figuring Richard might be down there working or something. The door's slightly open.
Yeah.
And that right there, that's the first red flag.
It's like a scene from a horror movie, right? The door's ajar, and you just know something bad is waiting on the other side.
And what she finds, oh man, it's awful. Richard is there, lying on the floor, dead. And there are signs of a struggle, blood stains, furniture knocked over. Everything's just chaos. It's clear this was a violent, brutal attack.
And then you've got that one detail, that just sends chills down your spine, the murder weapon, that luxury belt wrapped tight around Richard's neck.
So chilling. It's a horrifying scene. And you can imagine the shock, the trauma. Wendy could barely even speak when she called 911. It's unimaginable to find the person you love like that.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? I mean, did Wendy suspect anything? Did she know about Richard's double life? Was she involved in any of it?
That's a great question. And of course, that's exactly what the police were trying to figure out too. So Detective James Cattle, he's leading the investigation. And they start by looking at the people closest to Richard. Standard procedure. But in this case, man, those close relationships, they were anything but standard.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, you've got this whole secret affair with the stepson. That throws a wrench into things.
Yeah.
And then you start uncovering all the other secrets, all the other affairs. Things get messy real fast.
Okay, so we've got this tangled family dynamic. And then the investigation starts to branch out. The police start looking at other potential suspects, people outside of the family who might have had a reason to want Richard dead.
And that's where this case really starts to take on that classic whodunit feel. You've got multiple suspects, each with their own secrets and motives. And the police are trying to piece it all together, trying to figure out who had the means, the opportunity, and most importantly, the motive to kill Richard.
So let's start with the most obvious suspect, right? Harrison. the stepson. He's got a bit of a troubled past, history of substance abuse. And, of course, there's that whole secret affair with Richard. So could jealousy have been a motive? Or maybe he felt trapped in that relationship? Or maybe
it was something else entirely. We'll get into that later. But for now, just remember, things are not always as they seem. And in this case, well, let's just say there are a lot more twists and turns to come. Well, the police, they were looking into Harrison, trying to figure out his alibi, see if it checked out. And during the search of the house, they found something pretty interesting.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. What did they find?
A hidden camera.
Wait, what? A hidden camera? Where?
Down in the basement, disguised as a smoke detector.
No way. Richard had a hidden camera in his own basement. I mean, I guess it makes sense with all the secrets he was keeping, but still, that's creepy.
Yeah, it's definitely raises some red flags. I mean, why would he need a hidden camera in his own house? Unless he was trying to, well, to keep tabs on something or someone.
So what did the camera show? Did they catch anything useful?
Oh, they caught more than just useful. They caught everything. I mean, this camera, it was basically Richard's own personal reality show. It recorded all of his little rendezvous, his meetings, his arguments, everything.
So it basically confirmed everything we already knew about his double life.
Oh, it did more than confirm. It gave them a front row seat to the whole thing. But more importantly, it captured something else. Something that changed the entire course of the investigation.
Okay, now you really have my attention. What did it capture?
It captured Richard and Harrison having this huge fight down in the basement on the day of the murder.
Hold on. So they have the stepson on camera arguing with the victim on the day he died. I mean, come on, that's got to be game over for Harrison, right?
It certainly doesn't look good for him. And it gets worse. The argument, it wasn't just a shouting match. It turned physical. They started shoving each other, wrestling around. And then, well, let's just say the camera caught the whole thing.
They saw Harrison kill Richard on camera.
They did. The footage shows Harrison grabbing that luxury belt, the same one found around Richard's neck, and, well, he used it to strangle him. Right there on camera.
Oh, man. That must have been awful to watch. So they finally had their smoking gun, huh? No more alibis, no more guessing. They had him dead to rights.
Yep. They brought Harrison in for questioning, showed him the footage, and let me tell you, his reaction, it was pretty damning. He went white as a sheet, started stammering, sweating, the whole 9 yards. It was clear that, well, the jig was up.
So he confessed.
Eventually, yeah. Once he realized there was no talking his way out of this one, he broke down, confessed to the whole thing. But his confession, it wasn't exactly a straightforward admission of guilt.
What did he try to say he was an accident or something?
Not quite. He claimed that he just snapped. He said that Richard had been manipulating him, controlling him, that he felt trapped in this whole messed up situation with the affair and everything.
So he was playing the victim card.
Yeah.
Trying to shift the blame onto Richard.
Yeah, in a way. He claimed that he felt pressured, coerced into the relationship, and that on the day of the murder, he couldn't take it anymore. He lost control. And, well, you know the rest.
What about Wendy? I mean, she knew about the affair, and she's the one who pressured Harrison to continue it. Did she face any charges?
Well, that's where things get a little murky. Legally speaking, she wasn't directly involved in the murder, but her role in the whole thing, it was definitely questionable. I mean, she knew what was going on between her husband and her son, and she chose to look the other way, even encouraged it to some extent. But ultimately, the police decided they didn't have enough evidence to charge her with anything.
Wow, so she basically walked away scot-free.
Pretty much, but that doesn't mean she escaped the consequences. The scandal, it pretty much destroyed her reputation. She was forced to withdraw from the school superintendent race. And I'm sure the guilt, the knowledge of her role in all of this, it must have been, well, let's just say I doubt she was sleeping too well at night.
Okay, so we've got the confession, we've got the video evidence, and we've got a family torn apart by secrets and lies. This is a slam dunk case for the prosecution, right?
Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you? But you know what they say about assumptions? Yeah, assumptions. They can be dangerous, especially in a case like this. Because even with the confession, even with the video, there were still a lot of questions, a lot of loose ends. And the trial, well, let's just say it was anything but a slam dunk.
Oh, so it went to trial. I was kind of figuring Harrison would just plead guilty and take a deal, avoid the whole media circus and all that.
Well, he considered it, but his lawyer, Z. Barnes, they convinced him to fight it. They thought they could get him a lighter sentence if they took it to trial.
Okay, interesting. And Z. Barnes, they're pretty high profile, right? I feel like I've heard that name before.
Yeah, They're known for taking on these tough cases, the ones that really grab the headlines. And this one was made for the media. You had the wealthy real estate agent, the secret affair with the stepson, the hidden camera. It was a recipe for a media frenzy.
Totally. So what happened at the trial? What were the main arguments from the prosecution and the defense?
Well, the prosecution, they went in hard. They painted Harrison as this cold-blooded killer, driven by jealousy and rage. They showed the jury the video, the whole thing, the argument, the struggle, the murder. It was pretty damning stuff.
Yeah, I can't imagine that helped Harrison's case much.
It didn't, but Z Barnes, they're a good lawyer, a real smooth talker. They knew they couldn't deny the murder. So they shifted their strategy. They focused on Harrison's state of mind. They argued that he was basically a victim himself of Richard's manipulation, of the pressure of keeping this huge secret.
So they were going with the he snapped defense.
Exactly. They brought in all these expert witnesses, psychologists and whatnot, to talk about the effects of abuse and coercion. They argued that Harrison was basically a kid trapped in this messed up situation with a powerful older man, and that on the day of the murder, he reached his breaking point.
Did they try to bring Wendy into it? I mean, she was the one who pressured Harrison to keep the affair going.
Oh, yeah. They definitely brought her up. They argued that she was, well, let's just say they didn't paint her in a very flattering light. They made it seem like she was more concerned with her own ambitions, her career, than with her own son's well-being.
So they basically threw her under the bus, even though she wasn't on trial.
They did. And you know what? It kind of worked, at least with some of the jurors. It created this sense of doubt. Like, maybe Harrison wasn't entirely responsible for his actions. Maybe he was just a pawn in this whole twisted game.
Man, this is heavy stuff. So what was the verdict?
The jury deliberated for days. And in the end, they found Harrison guilty, but not of first-degree murder. They convicted him of second degree.
So they believed the he snapped story.
It seems so. The prosecution wanted first degree. They argued that the murder was premeditated, that the belt, the choice of weapon, showed that he planned it. But the jury, they weren't convinced. They believed that while Harrison did kill Richard, he didn't necessarily go into that basement intending to do it.
How much time did he get?
25 years.
Man, that's a long time.
It is. And for a young guy like Harrison, well, let's just say it's a pretty hefty chunk of his life.
What about Wendy? What happened to her?
Well, she lost everything. Her reputation, her career, her family. She was forced to resign from her job as principal. And the school superintendent forget about it. That dream was dead.
It sounds like everyone lost in this case.
Right.
Richard, Harrison, Wendy, the whole community. It's tragic.
It is. It's a reminder that, well, that actions have consequences and that secrets, well, they have a way of coming back to haunt you.
Well, folks, there you have it, the Richard Engelbert case. It's a twisted tale of betrayal, deceit, and ultimately tragedy. And it's a story that'll stay with you long after the credits roll. So what do you think? Was justice served? Or was Harrison just a pawn in a much bigger game? Let us know in the comments. And until next time, stay curious, keep digging, and remember, there's always more to the story than meets the eye.